Hello everyone, it's Stephanie, your CSA coach, and this is week 24 of our CSA shares, which means it's the last week of our CSA for this season. Two quick announcements. One, it is the last share, so either pick up today or tomorrow, or on Thursday for your last share if you are a full share member or a half share B week share. Second, if you have not renewed for next season, please make sure you do so. There are limited spots available, so if it fills up, especially with the add-ons. So if you are interested in any of the add-ons, there's a limited availability of those. So make sure you get signed up. Plus it also helps our farmers out. A big shout out to our farmers, Tom and Trisha and all the farm help that made this season successful. We appreciate all your hard work and can't wait till next season. All right, jumping right into what we have this week, a lot of repeat items, so it should be fairly quick. We have head lettuce. Head lettuce gets stored in the fridge in a plastic bag, preferably unwashed. Use for salads, use for burgers, chop it up and use it for tacos, use it for, you can actually use the leaves as like a wrap, as a vessel for things like chicken salad, egg salad, tuna salad. So that's our head lettuce. We also have kale. Kale is stored the same way, so in a plastic bag in the fridge. Kale can be eaten raw or cooked. You can make it into kale chips. You can make a massaged kale salad. There are a bunch of recipes online on the blog. I know I have kale chips from this season. Either last season or this season before, I did like a kale Caesar salad. That's really good, so you can do that. Or you can just simply saute it as a side. You can also turn it into green cubes. So if you still have your kale from last week, you can blend them down and make green cubes, which are great for smoothies or just to add to stock and things like that. Kale is great in soups also, so this is soup season, we can add that to soups. We have arugula, which I've mentioned before is one of my farm favorites. The arugula from the farm is fantastic, so I generally eat it just like this. It's stored in this plastic bag right in the fridge. I would probably say this is one of the first items that you're going to want to use from this week. You can eat it raw or you can cook it. You can make an arugula pesto or any type of sauce with it. There is a recipe on the blog that came out really good this year for, I can't remember what I called it, but it was a pasta with radishes and arugula in it. You can sub out the French breakfast radishes for any of the radishes we have this week. So you could make that using the radishes we have from this week as well. But that's really good and really different if you're looking for something to use some of the produce from this week. So that's our arugula stored just like this in the fridge. Once you wash it, either any of them, once it's washed, you want to store it with either paper towels or a dishcloth, just so that absorbs the moisture and the moisture doesn't sit on the leaves. We have a huge head of bok choy. Bok choy is stored in the fridge. Because it's so big, I use a Debbie Meyer green bag, so we store it in a plastic bag. You could also wrap it in saran wrap. Bok choy is really good raw or sauteed and eaten cooked. It's fantastic in stir fries. You can serve it as a side. Just as a side note, bok choy, because we can eat the entire thing, the leaves, the green part, the leaves, versus the stem or the stalk, they cook differently. So when you go to use it, if you're using the whole head, chop up the white stalk part, put that in a separate bowl, and chop up the green leaf part and put that in a separate bowl. Your white parts will take a little bit longer to cook, so put those in, either roast those or saute those for longer than you would the leaves. So I like to just saute this either as part of my stir fry, like do a sesame, like a sesame ginger bok choy as a side, and serve it over rice with some chicken or a different protein. Or add this right to a stir fry and just have I probably wouldn't use the whole head of it, but a few leaves or a few leaves and stems as an addition to the stir fry. We have radishes, our winter radishes. This is the purple daikon. Mine is huge this week. The regular daikon, the black radish, and the watermelon radish. They can all be eaten raw. I like to slice them really thin and serve them with a little sea salt, or slice them super thin and put them on top of salad. So they can just be served as is. You can pickle them. You can roast them. Whenever you roast radishes, it changes the flavor of them. So they sweeten up versus being so spicy like they normally are. So it's just a different way to prepare them and change the flavor profile. You can add them to stir fries. You can add them to salads. They're stored in the fridge in the crisper drawer or in a plastic bag. We have yellow onions. I think yellow onions might be part of the recipe for this week, so stay tuned for that. Kind of easy to use onions. These are also being sold in bulk, so you can get a bulk bag of yellow onions or red onions. The farm has those at pickup. Yellow onions are stored in a cool, dry place away from potatoes and are used either raw or cooked. So you can use them in stir fries, you can use them in sheet pan meals, you can use them raw, thinly sliced on salads. You can use them if you're gonna pickle your radishes, you can pickle some onions as well with them. I just made a big batch of French onion soup this past week with a bulk bag of the yellow onions. That came out really good, and since it's today is warm, but the other days have been a little bit cooler and we've been enjoying a little bit more soup. We have celery, so the celery is huge. Not something that you would normally see in the grocery store. This is our farm celery. The entire thing can be eaten, so don't throw away or cut off the leaves. You can use the stalks and the leaves. You can just use the stalks and eat them raw. You can use the leaves as garnish. You can just make a celery salad. There's a celery soup recipe on the blog. Definitely a great addition to any sort of soup. Awesome for broth. So that recipe was just shared, a veggie broth, which uses the celery. If you're not going to use it, it will last, but store it in the fridge in a plastic bag. I use a Debbie Meyer green bag because it's so big. In the fridge. You can also rinse it, chop it up, and freeze it. And that's great for soups throughout the winter. So if you want to preserve it, that can be done as well. 3 more items. We have broccoli raab. Broccoli raab is stored in the fridge in a plastic bag. Broccoli raab is great raw. It does have a bitterness to it, so you can saute it. I like sauteing it with just garlic and onion. If you want to soak it in salt water or in an ice bath, it helps with that bitterness a little bit prior to cooking it. But it's great just served as a side. So store it in the fridge for that. Parsley. So parsley is great as a garnish. You can do a chimichurri sauce. You can do any sort of green sauce. It's wonderful in soups. It's really good thrown in smoothies. It's got a lot of health benefits to it. Parsley, I'm pretty sure, is going to be showcased in this week's recipe, so stay tuned for that on Thursday. You can also dry it. So you can freeze it, and you can also dry it and then grind it up. So you can have freshly dried parsley throughout the winter. This is stored in a cup of water in the fridge. I leave it just like this. You can cover it with a plastic bag to kind of keep the moisture in. I just keep looking at the glass and make sure there's water in the glass. And I store it in the fridge that way. Okay, 2 more items. I think I said only 1. This is our squash for this week. I'm blanking. It's the cross of a butternut squash and a pumpkin pie squash. Butterkin. totally blanked on the name of it. It's a butterkin squash. Store it in a cool, dry place. Slice it in half, scoop out the seeds, roast it. You can serve it like that as a side. You can chop it up and roast it in cubes. It's just harder to chop because it's hard right now before it's roasted. I like to use the puree. So I will roast these up along with some other squashes I still have left over and just freeze the puree so that I can use it throughout the winter. You could certainly make a squash soup. You could make, this can be used instead of pumpkin in any of your baking recipes. You could definitely add the recipe I have for, what did I call it? The whipped squash dip and the squash creamer. You could definitely use this as well as the squash that it called for in that recipe. So cool, dry place for these. And then finally, we have our potatoes. Our potatoes are stored in a cool, dry place away from our onions. Pretty sure these are the things that are gonna be showcased this week because we've been getting a lot of potatoes. And along with that parsley, I have a few ideas of what to use them for. These can be roasted, they can be grilled, you can make grill packets, you can just do a big sheet pan of roasted potatoes, you can certainly saute them, and you can use them in soups. So that is it for this week. Go through your fridge and freezer and check what you have left from this past week. Or 2 weeks ago, use all of that stuff up first and then focus on your greens that aren't gonna last as long. Make a point to use them or to preserve them. And then go through the rest of what we have from this week. Stay tuned for the recipe on Thursday and make sure if you have any questions, just tag me in a post on our Facebook group. Thanks again for watching my live videos throughout the season, and you will see Trisha and I throughout the summer or throughout the off season, but we will be together again next season. So thank you for everything and enjoy the rest of the year.